Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Great Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to live the good life. For too long, common sense principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
This is the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We have a very big announcement at the bottom of the hour. About 6:32 p.m. Eastern Time, in less than a half hour, so I hope you'll hang in there and listen, whether you're listening on AM or FM radio, whether you're listening on satellite radio, whether you're listening and live streaming, or the Mark Levin app, or the iHeart app, or on YouTube, or wherever you are. If I missed, I apologize. Hang in there. The bottom of the hour, we're going to make a big announcement. I was not here last night because I was the keynote speaker, although there were great speakers, just tremendous, at the Christians United for Israel event. And CUFI represents almost 11 million active Christians in support of the United States, the State of Israel, and the Bible. And it was founded by Pastor John Hagee, the Cornerstone Church in San Antonio, Texas, his beautiful wife and daughter and son, just a beautiful family. My family and his family become extraordinarily close. Such a great honor. And we met so many fantastic people there, perhaps many of you. Just fantastic, God-loving people. You know, we say God-fearing, I say God-loving people. And when you think about the debate, the lead up to what Israel did with Iran and then what we did to their nuclear sites, you realize that this debate occurs mostly in Washington. That the overwhelming majority of the American people wanted the Israelis to defeat the Iranians and wanted the United States military to take out their nuclear sites. And that's what the polling shows. And I sat here and I thought about this. Look what's happened in the Middle East. Thanks to Benjamin Netanyahu having to deal with Biden, and now Benjamin Netanyahu teaming up with our great president, Donald Trump. What the two of them have done. It's radically changed the Middle East for the better, and more changes to come. Keep this in mind next time there's a debate among so-called influencers and isolationists, and we red-blooded American Yanks. all this hate America stuff coming from the isolationists, the paleocons, that's what they used to be called, the Buchananites, and the Marxist-Islamists on the left. And look what this president has achieved. There's reason to be optimistic, very. The border is secure. They're trying to find and remove the criminals, and these are horrendous people, sent into this country or who've come into this country during the Democrat-Biden regime open border. And they came by the millions, ladies and gentlemen. People came here by the millions. It's shocking. And this president trying to deal with it. Look at the Supreme Court ruled when it comes to these lower courts. He ruled what we wanted them to rule. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a patsy. I'm not a Pollyanna. But I'm just saying, let's look at the victories. It just told the lower courts you can't do what you're doing. Now, will they look for ways around it? Yes, they certainly will. But at least in the first round, which is a big round, we won. Look at the other ruling, written by Alito, 6-3, about parents and children and school boards and school systems. A massive victory. And if the president is able and the Republican leadership is able to get this bill through, whether it takes a little longer or not, you're going to have a massive tax cut. Not everybody, but 70% of the American people. A massive tax cut. And for those of you who don't get much of a tax cut, at least you'll be able to hold on to most of the tax cut you had in the prior Trump term. Now, you might talk spending. I don't disagree. But what's the alternative here? The Democrat Party wants massive tax increases and even more spending. And I would say to my conservative brothers and sisters, I want bigger spending cuts too. But you can't do it when you have a 3-vote majority in both houses of Congress, because you have the Susan Collins types, or you have the Rhino types, you have liberal Republicans, or whatever you have. So it's impossible to accomplish what we want to accomplish. There are more reports about how Israelis are killing Palestinians. It's amazing to me. You've got hostages there in Gaza. They still won't allow. They could have peace in 2 minutes. Surrender, give the hostages back, and it's all over. But they won't do it. They won't do it. That's the bottom line. Now, things aren't perfect, and we need to fight. We need to be resolute. There's a lot to do. There's a movement in this country, Marxist-Islamist movement, that has taken hold, that is in our culture. It's in academia. It's destroying our colleges, even our best colleges. It's destroying our entertainment. It's destroying our news media. It's destroyed the Democrat Party. It's leaching into the Republican Party through isolationists. And it's a real deal. And all you have to do is look at France and especially England now, and then you'll see. This has been in the works for about 40 to 50 years. CARE was founded in 1993. It's a Hamas front group. It was founded for the purpose of leading the cause to try mainstream radical jihadi Islamicism. And the Marxists long ago took over our faculty in the 1960s. And you have the fusion of what I've talked about repeatedly of the Marxists and the Islamists. They are here. They are dangerous. They've basically conquered the Democrat Party. That's what they've done. They've basically conquered the Democrat Party. How did this happen? It's in my book, On Power. Where are we going with this? It's in my book, On Power. Why do they hate us? Why do they want to destroy us? It's in my book, On Power. What about the Democrat Party? It's in my book, On Power. I delve into faith belief, the Judeo-Christian belief system versus the Marxist-Islamist belief system. And they have a lot in common, those two. Not ultimately, but a lot in terms of the means, not so much the ends. And you're going to read about it. It's something I think that you'll find compelling and really motivating to deal with. And that's the point of this book. You're going to look at a way and find a way to look at freedom and unalienable rights like you've never looked at it before. Ever. Because in my 11th book, it's what it is. 10, excluding rescuing Sprite on these substantive issues, having taken time to do research for half a century, to study these issues for half a century, I think I've come upon something that's very important. People talk about power and passing, and then they move on. We talk about liberty till we're blue in the face. We talk about tyranny till we're blue in the face, and we should. But we have to explain why liberty, why tyranny, why not Islamism, why not Marxism, why yes republicanism, why yes constitutionalism. And I lay it out. And every time I look, now I have this Marxist-Islamist, anti-Semite, intifada supporter, that's terrorism. There's the Democrat nomination for mayor of New York. You never thought it would happen. Worse is going to happen. If we don't educate ourselves about this, the education in this book is not available anywhere else. You're not going to get it in college. You're not going to get it in high school. You're not going to get it in the media. It's not available anywhere else. Well, you'll get it in the media to the extent I talk about it. Then you'll get it. Very important. And why is it the isolationists are so wrong? I don't even mention them in the book, but why is it that they're so wrong? Because they don't accept the mindset of the enemy. They don't even treat it as an enemy. They think we're the enemy, or the Jews are the enemy, or Israel's the enemy, or the warmongers the enemy. This is a problem. This is a problem we've got to deal with. It's a matter of understanding, informing ourselves on what we're dealing with. I divide this book into different chapters. There are not a lot of chapters. There are not a lot of chapters. But each one is very important. The first chapter is on power. What do I mean by this? Think about power. It's ubiquitous. So what do I mean by it? And how am I going to fashion a discussion about it? Chapter 2 is on negative power. Well, what does that mean? People think they know what it means, but people really don't know what that means. So I broke out that piece and I explained that. Next chapter, obviously, positive power. What does that mean? Why is it positive? Chapter 4 is on language. I address on language in other books, but this time I address it in another way. In relation to power and wokeism and speech rules on college campuses and on and on and on. On rights. What does power have to do with rights? We have rights right there in the Declaration of Independence. Unalienable rights. Well, there's a difference between God-given unalienable rights and how those unalienable rights given to us by God are manifested right here on earth. The earthly application of those unalienable rights. So we're going to discuss that in the book, chapter 5, and much more. What do we mean by liberty? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I went to the greatest sources of that word. I went to Aristotle and Cicero. I went to John Stuart Mill, wrote a whole book called On Liberty. I wrote to the founders, I went to the founders of your country, and many more. And you know what I found, Mr. Producer? There's no great definition for liberty. It's typically described by what it's not, or in the context of something else. And so we get into this. What really does liberty mean? Now, this book could have been 1,000 pages long. It could be 10 books. If I decided to apply power to immigration, power to equality, power to you name it. But that's not the nature of this book. And if I wrote a book 1,000 pages long, you wouldn't read it. Neither would I. Be a good doorstop, probably. or one of those cocktail table books and nobody reads. It just sits there. I want you to read it. That's why when you read this book, you'll find there's a limit on the number of endnotes, because most of it's my own thinking. There's endnotes. I give credit where credit's due. You will find that the book, the substance of the book, is 182 pages long, not 300 pages long. You will find in each page, in each chapter, something that is intriguing and compelling. You may have to go back and read it twice, maybe 3 times, to think through the points that I'm raising with you. And you're going to find that this book has everything to do with what you discussed at the breakfast table, at the dinner table, at Thanksgiving. This book has everything to do with the debates that go on in this country. This book has everything to do with 80% of what you see on TV or listen to on radio. And it's going to change the way you view things for the better. For the better. We have a hell of a show for you this evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be back. I'm so honored to have been at CUFI. And what a beautiful honor from those folks. Just so inspiring. I just wish all of you could have seen it and all of you could have been there. So we'll get started. Bottom of the hour, big announcement. Bottom of the hour. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This is Mark Levin wishing you a happy 4th of July. Now back to the best of me. Zohran Mamdani, who's absolutely fabulous, co-founder of the Clarity Coalition with Zuhdi Jasser. She wrote a great piece and has a great background on these things about socialism, these Islamists, and how they pulled off a 20-year takeover of the Democrat Party. She wrote this at Fox News. I said, whoa, I've got to have this young lady on the program. And this is the fusion of the Marxists and Islamists. They call themselves democratic socialists just because it sounds better. But they're not democratic and they're not socialists. They're communists. They're Marxists. That's what they are, and they're Islamists. And later in the program, we're going to give you a whole background on this guy because he's just the tip of the iceberg. And AOC and the Democrat Party, big chunks of it. Bernie Sanders and all, they're very excited about this. They're pushing this. And in the biggest city in the United States, the wealthiest city in the United States, the most diverse city in the United States, can you imagine if one of these people becomes mayor? He's a racist. He wants to tax white people in white neighborhoods higher. He's an anti-Semite. He believes in BDS and this also global intifada. He is a communist who wants to take over the means of production. He's unapologetic about it. He's basically Stalin with a smile. Big announcement coming up literally in minutes. Stick with us. I'll be right back. Are you concerned about the rising number of judges who've been limiting President Trump's executive orders? Now, if you're not concerned yet, you should be. When these judges use injunctions to block President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate from the American people, it is we, the people, who lose out. Thankfully, the Heritage Foundation has the policy solutions to stop these threats to our judicial system. So go to heritage.org and get your free copy of the How to Stop Activist Judges ebook. This resource explains exactly what these judges are doing, why it matters, and how under the Constitution they can be stopped. President Trump's agenda is in danger, but even more importantly, the safety of Americans and the future of our nation could be at stake. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your free ebook today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. You know, whenever I launch a book, ladies and gentlemen, the Reagan Coalition, the Conservative Coalition, now the Trump Coalition, Tea Party Coalition, that is, patriotic Americans come from all over the country to greet each other, to share stories with each other, to be with each other, to have a beautiful dinner, for us to meet, for me to talk about this new book on power, which is a very, very important book, and really a hallowed place, the Reagan Library. It is beautiful. It's the most beautiful library that's out there. And it's a great honor to have with me tonight the president and CEO of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, David Trulio, who's doing a fantastic job out there. So, David, tell everybody what we're doing this year, and let me just suggest to the audience, if you're interested in doing this, don't sit around and think about it, because typically it's gone by the end of the program. David, go right ahead and welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Mark. And wise words. People should absolutely act quickly. Mark, we are so excited to welcome you back to the Reagan Library, the place that bears the name of the greatest president of the 20th century. And Mark, this is going to be your ninth. So excited. So here's the plan. You and I will have a conversation about your new book, and you and our guests will stay for a buffet dinner in our spectacular Air Force One pavilion. And I recommend that anyone within the sound of this broadcast go to reaganfoundation.org/Levin to buy tickets. And they should do it right now. With history as a guide, I know that tickets will sell out very quickly. So do make sure you go to reaganfoundation.org/Levin to secure your ticket right now.
And folks, I want you to know, David's not throwing something at you. This is absolutely true. We have a overflow section to it, and once it's sold out, it's sold out. There's nothing we can do about it. And so we sell it every year. We sell it very, very quickly. I really want to see every year, want to see as many of you as possible. This is the biggest event that we have, that they have, each time we do this. There's no guarantee we'll do this every time. There just isn't. But this time, our friends at the Reagan Library, we have a tremendous relationship with them. We'd love to see you there. Again, it's August 17th. August 17th, that's a Sunday, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, at the Reagan Library, Simi Valley, California. Again, Sunday, August 17th, 2025, this August, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. Sign up. Get your seat. Enjoy the dinner. You know I spend time with you. We talk. You know I sign every book that comes to me. You go to reaganfoundation.org/Levin, reaganfoundation.org/Levin.
And Mark, if I can elaborate, you have been so generous with your time. You literally sign every book. The book signing starts at 1:30 on Sunday, the 17th of August, and the main program is going to start at 6. And historically, you have used all of that time from 1:30 until that 6 p.m. program start time. So it's really great. And so we're all clear. If people purchase a ticket, it gives them access to the buffet dinner, provides them the ability to tour the Reagan Library and Museum, and then we'll roll into the program, and people can also tour the plane that President Reagan used as Air Force One. So they can tour the museum from 4:30 to 5:45, see the event with you, have the dinner, and then go onto the plane, that Air Force One plane, from 7:30 to 8:30.
And you have fantastic events They're at the museum at the Reagan Library. They're museum-like places that you have where people can spend time and look and do other things. So once I sign your book, you're not just milling around. There are literally tons of things to do in this fantastic library. Many of you who've come before, you know you got to get in line. You got to sign up as quickly as you can. I'm only doing 3 book signings. This is the only book signing on the West Coast. There's not another one. There's not one. This is it. And anybody who has been wanting to go to the Reagan Library or go back to the Reagan Library, this is where you pull it all together. And you have a fantastic dinner. Again, we will all meet. And we're going to get into the guts of this book on power, which I think is crucially important now more than ever. I take questions from the audience. And you know, David, we have people we don't know, people who we don't even expect show up, who sometimes actors and actresses, sometimes former governors, people of that sort. It's a lot of fun. You don't really know who's going to come. And it's exciting. It is, it's one of those events. It's fun. And I suspect when you walk away from it, you're going to talk about it. As a matter of fact, David, we've had many people, parents and grandparents, they bring their children and their grandchildren. They make it a real event. They enjoy it. We enjoy seeing it.
And Mark, they can make it a full day at the Reagan Library, because in addition to seeing you and participating in the book signing, there's that tremendous museum that tells the story of Ronald Reagan and his life, his presidency. We also have a remarkable special exhibition right now, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yes, literally the Dead Sea Scrolls from Israel are with us. So people, they'd have to buy a separate ticket for that, because that sells out too on the weekends. But they can come to the cafe, they can tour the museum, they can buy a ticket to go see the Dead Sea Scrolls. 8 scrolls, 2,000-year-old scrolls that reflect the foundations of Judaism and Christianity, and there are 200 accompanying artifacts. And on top of that, they get to see you and get their books signed by you. But I promise everybody, this sells out fast every time. So if you actually want to do this, go to reaganfoundation.org/Levin right now.
The Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, I went already all the way to Israel to see some of this. So you have it brought back here. Folks, I didn't even know this. This is going to blow your socks off. What you see there, you're going to see the history. The history of how Judaism and Christianity began. These Dead Sea Scrolls, they were found in caves in the sides of mountains by people who were just sort of milling around, and miners and shepherds and so forth and so on. And they have a very sophisticated lab set up in the Holy Land to try and decipher them, and they're starting to do that. And the only reason they survive is because they were in these caves and they didn't get wet and so forth. They're thousands of years old. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, Dave? Years,
and they're the most. It's the most important archaeological discovery of the 20th century, or certainly one of them. And they're incredibly fragile. They're preserved by the arid climate there, and it's more than a display of artifacts. It's a journey through human spirituality and resilience and the enduring quest for meaning. So I can't think of a more special way to take it all in at the place that bears Ronald Reagan's name, with somebody who served his administration and carries forth the Reagan legacy and principles, Mark Levin. So we're just so grateful, Mark, that of all the places that you can come, that you've chosen this at one of only 3 locations in the United States where you will talk about your timely and consequential book.
So reminder, folks, Sunday, August 17th, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's when we'll start the book signing at the Reagan Library, Simi Valley, California. It's absolutely beautiful. You can honor the lives of the Reagans. They're buried right there on the property, as a matter of fact, overlooking the beautiful hills of the area and so forth, Simi Valley. And it's always very well organized. You're going to have a fantastic time. A lot of people who've been there know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, a lot of people who've been there signing up right now as I speak. So if this is something you want to do it now. David, I want to thank you so much. One more time, where do people go if they want to sign up right now, tonight?
Right now, they go to reaganfoundation.org/Levin. And I'm actually sitting next to my computer here, and I can tell the orders are starting to roll in.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, we'll get them rolling in by the end of the show. We're going to roll it, baby. All right. Thank you, David. You take care of yourself.
Bless
and we can't
you, Mark.
wait to see all you folks. God bless. Take care. This is an event. It's more than just a book signing. I mean, it's very important. It's an event. It's people who come who are happy. We're going to be happier this time than we were 2 years ago because Biden was president. Now Trump is president. President Trump has Ronald Reagan's official White House portrait as he sits behind the Resolute desk over his left shoulder. Over his left shoulder. President Trump's tax cuts, in many respects, the people advising him advised Reagan. So I know they're great tax cuts because of Trump and Reagan's combination of thinking. Same when it comes to building up the United States military and so forth. Don't get me wrong, Trump is his own man, but he has tremendous respect for Ronald Reagan. I worked for Ronald Reagan for 8 years. I never worked for Donald Trump, but he's a dear good friend of mine. And so we'll bring all these histories, all this thinking, all this background together when we discuss the book. You'll be able to ask your questions when I get to meet each and every one of you. You'll get to have dinner there. And I did not know that the Dead Sea Scrolls would be there. That is fantastic. So you'll be able to check those out too. And this is incredible. I've seen some of this when we were in Israel. What was it? Month or two? Whatever it was. I'm losing focus on my time. And once more, west of the Mississippi, this is it. This is where I'm going. Not because that's the plan. It's just the way it is. I can't travel all over the country, do TV and radio. Some people can. I don't feel I'm treating my audience properly. And you'll notice it's on a Sunday. It's not during a weekday. We try for a Saturday or Sunday. And that's what we're doing in this instance. So if you want to join us, I'm just giving word to the wise. Don't sit back. Go to ReaganFoundation.org/LEVIN. ReaganFoundation.org/LEVIN. You're going to have a fantastic time. I'm telling you, you are. And I'm going to have one with you. I'm very excited about this. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/LEVIN, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This is Mark Levin wishing you a happy 4th of July. Now back to the best of me. Okay, well, you folks are, I hope, jumping in, contacting the our special hotline to acquire your seats and dinner arrangements at the Reagan Library. Again, it's ReaganFoundation.org/Levin, ReaganFoundation.org/LEVIN. Zohran Mamdani is a young democratic socialist. Now, ladies and gentlemen, every time you hear socialist, I want you to think of Marxist or communist, okay? He's not a socialist. Socialist is an economic system, so he's an economic socialist, but he's a Marxist, the iron fist of tyranny. This is from 2021. Cut one, go.
What I wanted to make sure to say is that when our position starts to change, when we start to accumulate power, when we start to elect individuals such as myself and my other slate mates into local office, we are starting to be treated in a different way than we used to be. And the way in which power engages us now, it is very critical for all of us to remember what it is that we are fighting for. and to remember that our agenda is an agenda that must not be dictated by calculus, but by conviction. And what I mean by that is that the many things that we believe, some of them are already popular in this moment right now, right? If we're talking about the cancellation of student debt, if we're talking about Medicare for all, these are issues which have the groundswell of popular support across this country. But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have...
Okay, please stop there. Seizing the means of production, stealing private property, stealing homes, stealing businesses, seizing the means of production. Now, ladies and gentlemen, your Declaration of Independence and your Constitution talk about protecting what you've earned, protecting what is yours. Again, this book on power gets into this in a big way. He just said, seize the means of production. He's a Stalinist. He didn't simply say, which would be bad enough, share the wealth, did he? Redistribute wealth. He said, seize the means of production. Now, are we supposed to forget this? Because he smiles? He's also from a fairly wealthy family. He wants you to believe he grew up in the third world. No, he was born in the third world, and they came to the United States. And then, of course, he wants to destroy the United States. He's of Indian heritage. And he's also a racist pig, because he talks about taxing white people more. He's also an anti-Semitic pig, because of the things he says about Judaism and Israel. This is who he is. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
At this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for, but that we are doing both of these things in tandem.
In other words, impose your will on the people. Dress it up, camouflage it, make it sound cool. Freebies for everybody. Who could be against that? Don't accept the status quo. Destroy it and proceed. One of the things that's never discussed in this, and I discuss it in the book, is what do you surrender in exchange for this? And his opponents are probably not smart enough to raise it. Maybe Curtis is, but I can't think of anyone else. What do you lose when somebody says seize the means of production? When somebody says, basically, we're going to take over the grocery industry? When somebody says free Medicare for everybody, in his case, it won't be Medicare, but it could be aspects of health care. What do you lose? You lose your liberty. That's what you lose. You lose freedom. Because he can't do this through a democratic process. Oh, he'll get elected maybe, but that's not my point. You won't, once they're in, they're not going to seek your input. They're going to impose their will. There is no way to seek your input and have it matter if you're talking about seizing the means of production. So if you have a business in New York, any kind of business, small, medium, large, food, jewelry, doesn't matter. Seize the means of production. And of course, it's obvious. What government can run anything? Seriously. That's a practical point. But here's a real point. Any government that can seize the means of production can steal your liberty, can steal your mobility, will make decisions about your life in the name of the people, even though the people aren't consulted. This guy is a hardcore Stalinist. He's a Stalinist. Oh, does that mean he's going to lock everybody up? No, but that doesn't mean he's not a Stalinist. He has a Stalinist mentality. That's what he is. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
This is the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We have a great guest on hour 3, our buddy Byron Donalds. Now, in the context of talking about this America-hating, Jew-hating Islamist who's getting the Democrat Party nomination for mayor of New York City, which has the largest concentration of Jews on the face of the earth. Think about that. And we'll get into where he stands and what he really is. Just know this. Global intifada, Global Intifada. Intifada is a war, terrorism war against the Jews. He said he has supported it. He said it's recently 2023, and the other day he said, look, that's just a rallying cry. It doesn't really mean anything. It means a lot. Intifada 1, Intifada 2 resulted in the murder of hundreds and hundreds of Jews, blowing up school buses, blowing up pizza parlors in Israel. And this guy blows it off. As a student, he led the chapter, he created the chapter and then led it of Students for Justice in Palestine, which, as you know, is a Hamas front group. He's campaigned for BDS, which is a war on Israel's economy, trying to persuade countries, institutions, our states, colleges and universities, other businesses, to cut off all commercial dealings, financial dealings with the state of Israel, to bankrupt it. This is the guy who wants to be mayor. But before we get into that, I want to lay the context for this. This is very, very important. As I've said here many times, and as I've written many times, Marxism and Americanism are incompatible. What I've also said here many times, and I've written, is that Islamism and Americanism are incompatible. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that because I hate Muslims? Has nothing to do with that. Nothing whatsoever. But you got to be able to speak the truth. You know, you got to be able to speak the truth, whether it's Carlson or Bannon or the rest of them, and you got to be able to speak the truth about this. This is life and death stuff. As an example, the regime that runs Iran is not going to stop. And there's only so much a president can do in his term. We took out their nukes. The prime minister defeated them militarily. But they're not going to stop. Why? Because they are zealots. They are fanatics. They're throwbacks to the 7th century. Let me explain. First, let's talk about ourselves. I think this is important. This is a little cerebral, and that's important. I like to get back to cerebral. We're going to get out of the sewer now. We're going to talk Mark talk. You and I, we believe God is the sovereign. I don't care if you're an atheist or an agnostic. You don't have to believe that. But you benefit from it. And I'll explain that in a minute, too. The people in this country benefit from the Judeo-Christian belief system, whether they are Jewish or Christian or not. You don't have to be a Jew. You don't have to be a Christian. But you benefit from the Judeo-Christian value, belief, principle system. You also benefit from the Enlightenment. From the Enlightenment. Now, this is all in my new book, by the way, On Power. in one section of it. It's not the whole thing. But I want you to hear me out, because this affects what's going on right now in New York and the whole country and Iran and all the rest of it. We believe God is the sovereign. Read your Declaration of Independence. You don't even have to open the Bible. Read your Declaration of Independence. Natural law, natural rights, unalienable rights, universal truths. Where does all that come from? It doesn't come from man. Your founders in 1776 issued a Declaration of Independence. In essence, a declaration of war against the most powerful military on the face of the earth, the British. And they wanted to make it clear to the whole world why they are going to fight the most powerful military on the face of the earth. It was almost a forever war, you know. It went on for 7 years, 8 years. But that aside. And what did they cite, among other things? The core of it was, we have unalienable rights. We have the right to be free. We have the right to representative government. There's natural law, natural rights, unalienable rights that no man, no government can give or take. The sovereign does. Okay, you with me right now? Now look, people can preach religion a hell of a lot better than I can. I'm not preaching religion. I'm preaching your history. Whether you like it or not, and most of you do. God is the sovereign. That's what the people who wrote the Declaration believed. That's what the people who fought for your freedom in your country believed. Hence, God's children. When mere mortals are making a government, God's children are the sovereign. The children of God, who he created, are the sovereign. Because he says so. You're the sovereign. Not a man-made government, not a Politburo, not a dictator. You're the sovereign. Okay? Now, what did the founders do? Well, we know they believed in that. That's the Declaration. And then they write this Constitution, right? Stick with me. I'm going to be doing this all hour. It's very, very important. And again, it's all in my book on power. If you like what I'm talking about, you find it intriguing and compelling, get the book, because it's explained in much more detail in a book. But let me continue. This is just part of the book. And it relates to everything, including this friggin' nominee. Stick with me. The Constitution. Where did they get this stuff about representative government? Now, that's not in the Bible. That's not in the Torah. Consensual government. Where does that come from? That you have to divide power. Separation of powers. That you can't have an overbearing, centralized government that lords over you. Where did they get this stuff from? The Enlightenment. From John Locke, from Montesquieu, and others. Originally Aristotle. Among the Romans, Cicero. Many. But your framers of the Constitution were focused on Locke and Montesquieu. Montesquieu's mentioned multiple times in the Federalist paper. Now, how do we know they relied on all of this? Because they tell us. I include the letter. Thomas Jefferson was asked. He was accused. He said, you didn't come up with all these ideas, Jefferson. What makes you so great? You didn't come up with all these ideas. In effect, that's what the guy wrote him, and he wrote back. I never said I did. I used the accumulated, agreed upon knowledge that existed in our country. And of course, the Declaration speaks of this God 7 times. The Creator, Providence, so forth. And then he cites Aristotle and Cicero and Locke and Montesquieu and others. He tells us that's what he relied on when he made the first draft of the Declaration. That's what they embraced, all of them. So what does that tell you? As I explain in my book, America was founded with a fusion of Judeo-Christian values and the Enlightenment. Judeo-Christian values and the Enlightenment. Now let's turn to Marxism. Well, they don't believe in any religious values or faith values. They believe in the elimination of faith. They believe the state is the demigod. They believe the state gives rights, gives freedom, take freedom. For the people, of course. The people make all these decisions, and we know that's a lie, don't we? People make no decisions. There's no democratic aspect to it whatsoever. But the proletariat will rise up, destroy the bourgeoisie, destroy the existing vestiges of any prior society, the change of prior societies, the feudal systems, agrarian systems, all systems, capitalism. The word capitalism was first written by Marx. We must destroy what exists, even the family relationship, the nuclear family. It must all be destroyed. Faith is nothing more than mysticism, and it stands into the way of progress and modernity and all the rest. That's in the book, too, just explaining it. That's Marxism. And the paradise will be the workers' paradise. Isn't it funny how they always predict what's going to be the end result? You can't predict any end result when you're talking about human behavior. There's so many fallacies in Marxism, and I touch on a number of them in the book. But I don't want to talk about Marxism. I want to talk about Islamism. Now, what does Islamism have in common with Marxism? Why is it that Islamists and Marxists are often the same, or they march together in Columbia, or UCLA, or Harvard, or whatever? Why is it that the Marxists like Bernie Sanders and the Islamists like Tlaib, the Marxists like AOC and the Islamists like Omar, and down the list, why is it that they form such a tight alliance? Because of the means that justify the ends. What do the Islamists want? They tell us what they want. I don't have to imply anything. Just because they don't read it at the New York Times, or they read it and they don't care, it's irrelevant to me. The Islamists want the same thing the Marxists want: the absolute destruction of the West, the absolute destruction of Judaism and Christianity and Judeo-Christian values. That's what Islamists want. That's why they march together. Now you'll say, well, the Islamists, they believe in God. The Marxists don't. Doesn't matter. It's only if they take the world over that will become relevant. Then they fight among themselves and decide. It's almost like Trotsky and Stalin. Two communists who fight and decide, no, this is the way we rule. No, this is the way that we rule. Not an exact parallel, but good enough. The Islamists and the Marxists at some point, God forbid if we don't exist anymore. And by the way, it's not just Jews and Christians. It's Muslims who don't believe what they believe. It's Hindus, it's Buddhists, it's atheists, it's agnostic. It doesn't matter. You don't conform. You don't conform for Marxism, you die. You don't conform for Islamism, you die. Nothing else matters. One says it's the calling of paradise on earth. The other says it's the only way to serve our God. It's the only way that we can reach our God, is destroy all this other stuff that's in between. That's what they write. That's what they say. That's what they believe. That's why the regime in Iran, unless it is completely obliterated, is not going away. And neither are their nuclear ambitions. That's different from saying Trump should do it, the Israelis should do it, the world should do it. I'm not getting into that right now. I'm talking about the mindset. And so, of course, Islamists are the enemy. They're our enemy. They're the enemy of Americanism. They're the enemy of the West. That's what they are. That's why they say death to America, death to Israel. What they mean is death to everybody who disagrees with us. Everybody. And now one of them is the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York. Does that mean he's a terrorist and wants to kill everybody? No, of course not. In order to westernize the revolution, And we know this from, among other things, the 1993 bugging of a hotel room at the Marriott outside the Philadelphia International Airport, where Hamasians met, and they created CARE. And everything they said was taken down. And among other things, it's available, a lot of it, for you on the internet, for the New York Times, if you want to take a look. And by the way, as a footnote, to call Charlie Kirk a racist makes me sick to my stomach. He and I don't always agree, but he's earnest, okay? He's not a racist. He's not an anti-Semite. Some people are. Some people are, and I've called them out. He's not one of them. That's my 2 cents. And so what they decided to do is sort of Americanize themselves, get people elected to Congress, get people in the media, create CARE, which would claim to be the greatest civil rights, Muslim civil rights organization in America, where they push the agenda to try to take over cities, state governments, local governments, have a big presence in Congress. They play the long game. We do not in the West. We don't play any game. Half the time we don't even know. You know, they're playing football and we're playing bocce. It's like that. So this guy, who's the Democrat nominee for the mayor of New York City, is both a Marxist and an Islamist. He's a socialist. He's not a socialist. He's a Marxist. Socialism is bad enough. That's an economic theory. It's not an ideological doctrine. He's a Marxist who believes in socialism. And he's an Islamist. He said so and then denied it. He's an anti-Semite. Oh, no, I'm not. Just because I favor BDS, just because I'm opposed to Zionism, which means the state of Israel. That's what it means. Just because I believe in the globalization of the intifada, the globalization of terrorism. No, I don't mean that. It's just a phrase of oppressed people. Now you know. It's in the book, On Power. Grab your copy because it's going to be relevant throughout the next 10 years. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans with plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. You can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. All the Islamist groups, they're not sleeper cells. They're out in the open. All the Islamist individuals in the media, the Marxists in the media, they're not going to push the candidacy of this guy, Zohran Mamdani. If I mispronounced it, tough crap. It's not a name I'm familiar with. Carol Makowitz, who's a fantastic columnist at the New York Post, she quotes Steve Bannon as saying earlier today, quote, "Listen, I've never said anything about Netanyahu doing what he does for his own country. What I'm saying is America first. What happened here is just not acceptable. They're not an ally. And don't ask me on that. Ask President Trump." As she points out, well, let's ask President Trump. He just made the most fulsome, unbelievable defense of Bibi Netanyahu against what they're trying to do to him, because Donald Trump and he have become very close friends, and Donald Trump went through this. And you know what Trump told me one time, Mr. Producer? He's got it worse than I do, Trump said, because he's the prime minister and they're still going after him. He has to show up in court on Monday, for God's sakes. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. This is Mark Levin wishing you a happy 4th of July. Now back to the best of me. All right, let's see here. So, by the way, let's say this. Stick with me. They're trying to diminish the accomplishment that took place. First, we have the isolationists who didn't want the accomplishment to take place. And if they had their way, Iran, let me even step back. If they had had their way, Israel would never have attacked Iran, because Israel was waiting for the United States to give the word that we would back them in their endeavors. And the president did that. So that's where it really starts, even before we get to the taking out of their nuclear sites. It's just fantastic what this president did. So you can see where the Jew haters, the Israel haters, and truthfully, the fake MAGA, the 6%, 94% of MAGA supported what took place. The 6%ers. So I say, abandon these people, folks. Abandon them. They're crazy. Here's Pete Hegseth at a press conference at the NATO summit today. Cut 3, go.
There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons, to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that drop the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
Mm-hmm. And the president's there at NATO, and he's actually having to defend or parry with the media that's attacking him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this country's been in many wars, many military battles and events. We've never had a media like this that roots against us. We've never had a fifth column like this of Democrats who want to impeach a president for doing exactly what he's able to do and doing it beautifully, flawlessly, brilliantly. as well as the isolationists. The same media is celebrating this guy, Zohran Mamdani, or however the hell you pronounce it. You understand what I mean? Your instincts about the media are correct. They covered up for Biden. They covered up the laptop. They hate us. It's not just Trump. He's the point of the spear. They'd love him to go to prison. That's not the point. He represents us. That's why they hate him. If he was one, you remember when it was the Reform Party, the Democrat Party, he was donating here and there. He was doing the deals as a businessman does in many instances. They loved him. Then when he identifies with the Republican Party, that's it. That's the end. He didn't even have to open his mouth. That was it, right there. Honestly, just like Elon Musk. Votes for Obama, he's great. He's doing this, great. We love our Elon. He's terrific. Donations to, he's great. Signs up, joins with Trump, assists big time in the election, runs this Doge, and they're out to literally destroy him and imprison him too. That's what they do. Very well said, Pete. Very well said. Rubio was quite good at this summit, too. Cut 7, Mr. Producer, go.
First of all this stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility. We can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone. It's wiped out. It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt. But now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
The Mossad says the same thing. The Mossad's all over that country. I think we've learned that. But these leakers are trying to undermine the great men and women of the military and what they've accomplished because they're trying to destroy Donald Trump. It's not going to work. The American people are patriotic. What the Democrats are doing is not going to work. The American people are patriotic. The isolationists, I have revealed them. I've been the point of the spear. You now know that Tucker Carlson is Chatsworth Catarlson. That's his name. You now know that Steve Bannon is a convicted criminal, a confessed criminal. And if he didn't get a pardon, he would have had to face other charges. So you now know he's pardon me, Bannon. That's who he is. That's who these people are. And if Gates opens his big mouth, I'm going to lay out what he is, too. It's unbelievable. It's in the public record. You can do it yourself, by the way. This Marjorie Trader Greene claims to stand up in principle and all the rest of it. Stabbing the president in the back, claiming she's more consistently principled than the head of MAGA. The hell is she? She's a nobody. A nobody with a low IQ. All right, I promised I posted something. And by the way, Fox isn't telling me to do or not do anything. I do this myself. I post, neither is Westwood One. Neither is Blaze. I'm a big boy. I posted something. I said, look, this lady needs help. She ought to get help. And so I'm going to back off. I actually believe that. In fact, I'm going to stop calling her Marjorie Trader Greene. I'm going to call her what she likes to be called. Marjorie, what the hell is it? I don't know. What is it? Marjorie Taylor Greene or MTG? I'm starting to feel really bad for her. It's just too easy, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to I'm going to leave her alone. Unless, of course, she pisses me off again, then I'll get right in her face. Fat boy and prep boy, two different stories. Two different stories. They're in the swamp. They're in the sewer. I much prefer to talk more cerebrally with you folks. So we'll do some jabbing and punching here and there, depending on how it goes, depending on how they try and undermine our military, undermine our president, undermine our country, how much grifting they're doing, how many lies they're telling, how much anti-Semitism they're spreading. It'll all depend. But I'd much rather do the kinds of things that I did at the top of this hour. I really would. But I believe my commitment to you and vice versa, we're a big family, that when I see injustices taking place, efforts to rip you off taking place, efforts to lie to you and mislead you taking place, I'm going to stand up to it. Hakeem Jeffries on the Morning Joe, this guy's a real lowlife. Absolute lowlife. Cut 8, go.
But the question, of course, is, was this strike successful in meaningfully pushing back Iran's
nuclear this is just, I can't stand this guy. I honestly can't stand it. But he's not alone. I can't stand any of these guys on the left. First, it's the War Powers Act. Then it's impeachment. But they tamped that down because they thought that would blow up in their face and have a backlash effect. Now was it successful? How do we know it's successful? This is a horrendous political entity, this Democrat Party. Some of you old-timers, you're Democrats, you ought to abandon that party. It's nothing like the party you signed up for. It's nothing. It's filled with these Marxists. It's filled with these Islamists. It's filled with these political whores. That's what it is. That's what it is. So I wrote a book, The Democrat Party Hates America. They got many of the retailers very upset. We can't put that book on the shelves. No, only books that attack Trump, By the way, the good news is my new book, On Power, it's going to be everywhere. Very excited. Costco put a very strict limit on books. Did you remember I talked about that, Mr. Producer? They're not going to carry many. They're going to carry my book, and they've already increased the order. My book's going to have more books in Costco's than most other books, which don't even appear anymore. I'm just telling you, this is going to take off. I want you to be part of this. I'm very, very anxious that you embrace this because you're going to love it. I gave you a little feel for it, just a tiny, which you can get at Amazon.com right now, about $24. And let's say 10,000 of you, just 10,000, that's it. There's millions of you out there. 10,000 of you go in there, order the book. That discount will get even bigger, and the more that order. I've seen that discount with my books go to 50%. 50%. This is why I say, don't wait. You're going to wait till the end. Get the accumulated benefit, Levinites, of this audience, of getting a huge discount. I know how their system works. They don't even want me to tell you. I'm telling you. The more pre-orders they get, the greater the discount. This book will wind up costing you, what, $15, depending on how it goes. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. Radio Free America, where real MAGA meets. The Trump Revolution, the Reagan Revolution, the Tea Party Revolution, we're all here together. Most of us are one and the same. That's right. Where my audience is respected. Where truth matters. Where we back our military, especially when it's going into battle. Where we back our commander-in-chief, who's brilliant, historic, iconic. Where we back our allies. We don't try to diminish them and undermine them. Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel and their warriors and their people. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We're going to help our friends in Taiwan, I hope, when that horrific event takes place. We're not going to allow the barbarians from the 7th century to take over the world. We're not going to allow the communist barbarians to take over the world. We have the enemy within that we have to fight and push back, as well as the enemy without. These are tough times for American patriots. And then we have so-called fellow citizens, a tiny 6%. Rather than confront the enemy, even with their verbal attacks, they attack us, you and me. They attack the commander-in-chief. They undermine the United States military right before military action. They're frauds and phonies and freaks. That's what they are. We got a full hour left. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
This is the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. What a great day. What a great day. Hello, America. Mark Levin here. It's Friday. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. The Israeli armed forces were successful. The American armed forces were successful. We have a tremendous president of the United States. They have a tremendous prime minister of Israel. These are good days. It doesn't normally line up so beautifully like this, America. It just doesn't. The Iranian regime 3 weeks ago was all-powerful. Today, it's on its knees. The isolationists in America are all but dead. Their ideology has been repudiated by the President of the United States and everybody else. A disgrace and a disaster. And the people who are red-blooded Americans who care about this country and understand that we want peace, and sometimes you have to use the military shrewdly, intelligently, in order to secure it against very, very evil enemies. Well, you won. 94% of you. 94%. Now, I didn't mean to leave you in a cliffhanger this long. What is wrong with these two cases that we won? 6-3 both, same justices in the 6 and the 3. Religious liberty and parental rights, and the lower courts cannot issue these nationwide injunctions. Now, they're going to have some sleazy ways to try and get around that, but I'll deal with that another day. They do exist. They're not that easy. Well, I'll just tell you now, Alito pointed them out in his concurring opinion, and he said, look, there's two things to worry about here. I'm all in on this decision. But third-party standing and these so-called class cases that you bring. Third-party standing, what does that mean? A third party goes to a lower court judge and says, hey, we think we have standing to be involved in this case, even if they may not. And he's saying these same judges, and I'm reading between the lines, these same judges who were reckless enough to try and destroy separation of powers, to seize the power of a president, to undermine the outcome of an election, to issue these nationwide injunctions, they're going to try and exploit the whole issue of third-party standing, that is, by liberally interpreting it to bring as many people in as they can, or these class action suits. Now, there's a Rule 23A, that lays out with particularity how you can be part of a class action suit. It's not so simple. Unless, of course, you're making the case to what? One of these radical left-wing judges. So the problem is these judges are not going away. They're lawless. They're radical Democrat lawyers in black robes. They're lawless. But there's a bigger problem. What's wrong with these two cases? Ladies and gentlemen, these two cases, the fact that the president had to bring the case involving these universal or national injunctions, and the fact that the issue of parental rights and not exposing elementary school children to perversions and sexuality and God knows what, they should have never been necessary. We are celebrating rightly two victories. Two victories that just bring us back to normality. In other words, these lower courts were so out of control. This school board was so out of control that we now consider a victory to put them back in the lane where they're supposed to be. What these judges were doing, the extent with them, I understand it started in the 60s, but really the hyper-extent of these kinds of orders that they issued, really over the last 10 to 15 years. We shouldn't even have had them doing these things. This school board, destroying parental rights, destroying the free exercise of religion in a most grotesque way. 25 years ago, that didn't even happen. So these cases show what? The degradation of our culture and our society. And that we have to celebrate a win when there should never have been a case if we were living in a healthy culture and society. You see my point, Mr. Producer? Nobody's really talking about this. It is big that we won both of these cases. But it is sad, problematic, that these cases had to even exist. That's my point. And it shows. It shows what's happening to our constitutional republic. It shows what's happening to the morality in our society and parental rights versus governmental rights over our children. These were 6-3 decisions. They were not 9-0. And these three radical justices, they wrote very emotional case responses and dissents, very emotional dissents. They're all in. And if they get two more, that's it. That's it. We're not going to win every presidential election, and they're going to be replacing good justices with bad justices at some point. But the level to which our society has been denigrated, our culture has been denigrated, is so bad, that these cases had to be brought to push back in the first place. And secondly, we won't always win. This was the dream of the early progressives, a.k.a. American Marxists. This, too, is discussed in my book, On Power. This is the dream. I spent a lot of time on Wilson. Rule by the judiciary that can create the creation of a fourth branch, the bureaucracy. In other words, rule by the unelected. Remember what I said at the opening of the program. These judges are still there. They're still going to do terrible things. They're still going to do terrible things. And they will have avenues to do it. They're still going to attack Trump and attack Trump policies. Why? Number one, he's a Republican. They're radical, partisan Democrats, just like Kagan today. But number two, Trump is the most effective president in pushing back against the establishment, the ruling class. Ever. Ever. We talked about this. That's why these judges rule time and again, to protect the fourth branch of government. That's not even in the Constitution. To protect their programs, to protect their fraud, their waste, their bloat, to protect every single member, every single employee, to protect their computers and the information on their computers to the public, to protect their data, to make it impossible to fire any of them, and on and on and on. That's their empire. That's what they're protecting. This is what Wilson and the early American Marxists wanted. This is why Kagan and Sotomayor, and especially Jackson, the most radical of the bunch, this is why they were so angry and so upset. Wait a minute. Our fellow judges at the trial level, the lower court judges, are protecting what? The American Marxist agenda. And they're furious, these three justices. Furious. And Jackson, being the most radical of the three, and that's saying something, she lost her head, in her opinion. Lost it. Lost it. That's what's going on. That's why I said celebrate these cases, but there's a bigger story here. Much bigger. And it's a huge problem. President Trump today. And by the way, if Donald Trump hadn't challenged it, this would be going on and on and on. And keep in mind, he is following court orders. The courts are not following the Constitution. Cut one, go.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect, or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades. And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple.
Cut two, go.
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
They could have taken up birthright citizenship today as well, but I guess they figured out that they've already bitten off more than they can chew. Probably wise, actually, because we're going to lose a few of these justices, I'm convinced, when it comes to that decision, unfortunately. But there's a very heavy political pressure. A lot of people involved, and I think they'll buckle to that. But today they stood up. And they deserve credit when credit is deserved. And they stood up in two very important cases, actually other cases too, but these in particular. It's not a conservative court. Conservatism is a political philosophy. This is about constitutionalism. That's their job. They did their job. 6 of them did their job. The other 3 are wild maniacs. Don't forget to set your DVRs. These shows this weekend, 8 p.m. Eastern, both nights, are really powerful. Saturday night show is extremely patriotic. Extremely patriotic. You're going to really like it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. All right, just opening this here. President sent me this a couple hours ago. He posted it on True Social. Why would the so-called supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, of the war-torn country of Iran, say so blatantly and foolishly that he won the war with Israel, when he knows his statement is a lie? It's not so. It's just like the isolationists think they won something. They've disgraced themselves. His country was decimated. His 3 evil nuclear sites were obliterated. And I knew exactly where he was sheltered, and would not let Israel or the U.S. Armed Forces, by far the greatest and most powerful in the world, terminate his life. I saved him from a very ugly and ignominious death. And he does not have to say thank you, President Trump. In fact, in the final act of war, I demanded that Israel bring back a very large group of planes, which were heading directly to Tehran, looking for a big day, perhaps the final knockout. Tremendous damage would have ensued, and many Iranians would have been killed. It's going to be the biggest attack of the war, by far. During the last few days, I was working on the possible removal of sanctions and other things, which would have given a much better chance to Iran at full, fast, and complete recovery. The sanctions are biting, but no, instead I get hit with a statement of anger, hatred, and disgust, and immediately dropped all work on sanction relief and more. Iran has got to get back into the world order flow, or things will only get worse for them. Can you imagine what the boneheaded isolationists would do if Trump whacks them again, Mr. Producer? I mean, I think they'll card their friends in Qatar and Putin. I think they might even move to one of these enemy countries. A burned-out, blown-up country with no future, a decimated military, a horrible economy, and death all around them. They have no hope. It'll only get worse. I wish the leadership in Iran would realize how to get to peace. This is Mark Levin wishing you a happy 4th of July. Now back to the best of me. Can you imagine somebody in public office who doesn't know that the Iranians murdered American soldiers and Americans? Can you imagine that, Mr. Producer? That's sick. Utterly sick. Really crazy. And this is propitious, too. I mean, you got a guy running for mayor in New York who wants to defund the NYPD. I mean, the guy gets over 40% of the vote in the Democrat primary. Now, I understand that's 10% of the vote of all the voters in the city, but it is what it is. And here's my concern. Cuomo's staying in. Eric Adams is staying in. Our buddy Slee was in. I don't see how this guy doesn't lose unless two of these guys get out. Am I wrong, Rich? Now, Sliwa, to me, is the best shot. And you'd want the moderate Democrats, the Republicans, or anybody who doesn't want this guy. They could rally around him and so forth. But Cuomo, who blew it in the Democrat primary, who ran a horrendous campaign, who's got so much crap going on in his background, it's just a lousy situation there. And Adams has all the excitement of a tangerine. The guy is, and not only that, his record is mixed. But whatever it is. I just wish these three guys would sit down and figure it out, because otherwise New York City is going to be destroyed. I really believe this. Very worrisome. It should worry everybody throughout the country, quite frankly. Everybody throughout the country. That you would basically have a minority candidate. I don't mean his race, for God's sakes. I mean in terms of the percentage of the vote. Might be a plurality, but still a minority of the voters slip in. I won't tell you how that got one guy into power, because people will take it the wrong way. It's amazing to know history and to have to hide history. It's just like the battle with the isolationists. All 7 of them. 7 of them. The battle of history versus absolute ignorance and stupidity. It's the way it goes, I guess. All right, let's see here. Oh, yes. Hold on now. I'm looking here. I wanted to get something. Let's see. Stick with me. Okay. Nope. Nope. Excuse me. We have a little problem with the Senate parliamentarian. Now, this parliamentarian, as I understand it, was originally appointed by the Democrats. And she's making some rulings that are very, not just problematic, devastating to the president's agenda, to your agenda, my agenda. And she can be fired by Mr. Thune, by John Thune, or they can bowl over her, but of course we want to keep the traditions of the Senate being what they are these days. And Catherine Salgado, I used to know somebody named Salgado. Who the hell was it? Decades ago. She writes, hey, GOP, Senate parliamentarian isn't binding. Important newsflash for the Senate GOP. The recommendations of the woke Senate parliamentarian, who's trying to ensure that absolutely no financial reform is enacted, are not binding. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said he's not going to challenge the outrageous decisions of the Senate parliamentarian. She's a bureaucrat. And no doubt he'd like you to believe there's no option otherwise. That is simply untrue. There are multiple ways of overruling the unelected Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonoghue's decisions. As voters, it's very important we understand the legal realities of our system and not give our elected representatives a pass just because they claimed helplessness. As the Washington Examiner explained, the parliamentarian is merely a staffer who serves at the discretion of the Senate. Any suggested ruling they make is not binding on the Senate. She's supposed to advise the Senate on following their own rules and the laws, which, according to her, include using taxpayer dollars to fund transgender treatments and illegal aliens. Which is unconstitutional, of course, among many other things, but don't just take my word for it or the Examiner's. Below is direct from the Library of Congress. Quote, as a staff official, neither the House or Senate parliamentarians are empowered to make decisions that are binding on the House or the Senate. And by the way, they can't be, because it would violate the Constitution. She's not in the Constitution. The parliamentarians and their deputies, assistants only offer advice that the presiding representative or senator may accept or reject. Individual members may appeal rulings. And there you have it. Thune absolutely does not have to accept McDonough's rulings, and even individual senators can appeal her rulings. Vice President J.D. Vance can also overrule her as president of the Senate. And yes, her decisions are seriously problematic and should be rejected. As just a single example, Breitbart reported on June 26 as follows. Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough ruled the Medicaid provider tax would require 60 votes in the Senate to be included in the big, beautiful bill. The Senate parliamentarians' ruling complicates the offsets for enhancing and extending the Trump tax cuts. The parliamentarian also struck down provisions that would bar the use of Medicaid funds for transgender health care services and to prevent illegal aliens from receiving Medicaid or CHIP health care coverage. So this one bureaucrat who's a staffer effectively makes these decisions because she knows that it won't get past the filibuster in the Senate with the Democrats. And what I'm saying, what PJ Media is saying, what Breitbart's saying, what the Examiner is saying is, why? She's not in the Constitution. Do your damn constitutional duty. You heard her advice, now reject it. Unbelievable. Congressional Republicans have a tendency to back down from vitally important fights that they can win. Thune doesn't have to obey the discretions and the decisions that McConnell has made, and other Republican senators can appeal her decisions. America simply can't afford to keep wasting money we don't have on utterly unconstitutional and unjustified woke programs and foreign lawbreakers. And she's right. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Happy Independence Day. All right, Mr. Producer, I want you to play Cut 9, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Supreme Nazi Leader of Iran, via translator. Cut 9, go.
The U.S. president said that Iran should surrender. That means there's no more enrichment. A great Iran and the word of surrender, they don't match. They don't match with each other. It's a joke. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Is he still hiding, by the way? Is he still hiding out? The Israelis wanted to take him out and Trump stopped them? So I'm just curious. Does he understand what he owes, President? Does he care? See what I mean, America? This guy is a rat. He's a cockroach. Go ahead.
The fact that the Islamic Republic has access to important American centers in the region and can take action against them whenever it deems necessary is not a small incident. It is a major incident, and this incident can be repeated in the future. If an attack is made, the cost to the enemy and the victim will definitely be high.
Well, let's say they start enriching nuclear fissile material again for a nuclear bomb. I think they should be hit again, don't you, Mr. Producer? And hard. And you know who agrees with me, America? The President of the United States. And the isolationists now are wetting themselves as if they're Joe Biden, except they don't wear Depends. But maybe they do. Especially Gates. He doesn't even wear pants. Well, you just never know. But let's take a listen. Here's the president. Hey, if they start enriching again, would you bomb them again, Mr. President? Cut 8, go.
If the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
And have you had any
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots. These guys are unbelievable. Think from 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible thing. I don't know if you heard the general. He was very impressive. Raising Cane.
Wow, Mr. Producer. That's going to upset the mental midgets out there. Absolutely. Because Donald Trump believes in protecting America from Islamo-Nazis with nuclear weapons, and they don't. That's our president, MAGA. And you agree with him, 94% of you. That's who we stand with. He's so great, isn't he? He's a great president. That's what he is. And they hate him for it. They backstabbed him. They said he's complicit in starting World War III. You believe that? You believe these people? Well, that's what they said. That's what they meant. All right, let's keep moving. We got a lot to do here, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Let's go to, let's see here. Let's talk. The Ayatollah Khomeini's still at it. No, let's go to Chris Murphy. Close. He's this Democrat senator who you know I despise. And you should despise him, too. He's an isolationist, too. I think he'll get a podcast at some point. Let's check this out. Cut 11, go.
The strikes potentially could have the impact of convincing this regime in Tehran or the next regime that they now have no choice but to rush to a nuclear weapon. And we already know that they have some capabilities that are so far underground that we can never reach them. So they
He has no idea about that, number one. Number two, he went on TV over and over again and told you that Joe Biden is the sharpest tack. Number three, he told you to ignore Hunter Biden's laptop. He's a liar. He's a serial, pathological liar. That's what he is. And he's an isolationist. They're all serial, pathological liars, these isolationists. That's what they are. Trump's not an isolationist. Reagan wasn't an isolationist. Secretary of Defense and State, they're not isolationists. I'm not an isolationist. You're not an isolationist either. You might as well be you might as well be suicidal. Suicidal. Now, these guys, they want to take the rest of us with them. We're not going. Ain't happening. Okay. But I wanted you to hear this guy, Chris Murphy. He's dumber than he looks, and he looks pretty dumb. All right, Richie Rich, I'm looking. I found it. I've got all these cases and the dissents, and I read them. I don't just read the articles about them, but they're spread out all over my desk. So one of these days, I think we're going to put a video camera here, and then we'll kick up our podcast, and we'll drive it near the top of the podcasts out there. By the way, have you noticed these podcasters keep interviewing each other, Mr. Perdue? Have you seen this? Have you noticed that? The same 5 people. I'm on the fraud room. I'm in the Qatar Center. Oh, there's the dumbest member of Congress. It's like they keep moving around and interviewing each other, and then they keep getting headlines. Oh, this one said this. It's hilarious. They don't even realize they're being mocked. It's funny. Very funny. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. and gentlemen, the week is officially over. The weekend begins right now. Don't forget, set your DVR, watch live, do both. Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday. Two really important shows. Saturday is extremely patriotic. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and you, the American people. I will be at Christians United for Israel Monday night, and we'll have a great person filling in for me then. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi. Good night, Zelda and Smokey and Gigi. Good night, Indy and Patton and Ronnie, Rory and Marty and Barney. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo. Good night, Joe. Good night, Bernard. Good night, Teddy. Good night, Lou. Good night, all the great patriots who've left us. We fight on in your name and in your honor. We fight on. Have a wonderful weekend, America. Check out Amazon.com if you can. On Power. I know you're going to love it. And I'll see you tomorrow night on Fox. Take care.